guys, it's Sam, and today I'm going to talk about some of my favorite mentors to lovers. So this is a video topic that got requested after I did my favorite mentors video a couple months back, and I was like, yeah, sure, I can totally do that. And then I was looking at these, and there's so few, and some of these are actually like a little bit of a stretch because I didn't add any that I didn't like, so you're not going to see like Throne of Glass on here because I didn't even finish those books for when they became romantically involved, so that's not here. Any that are like inappropriate I didn't put on here, so the mentors to lovers trope can be like, ooh, because I only like it in the case of like they're close in age, they're close in like power dynamics, because if you add like a teacher romance, I'm like, heh, like I can't do that. That's no, you won't catch me like in that dynamic, that like weird age gap, weird power dynamic thing. I like it more obviously in like fantasy books because that's what I primarily read, but where it's like a guard is teaching like maybe like a princess and they end up getting involved or something, or like Captain of the Guard, you know, so like the dynamics are like a little bit better and the age gap isn't like crazy. And yeah, so with those things held into account, the list is like fairly small. There's 7 and like a few of them are like stretching it a bit, but also I didn't want to have any overlap with my like princess and guard or like guarding a person trope, which I also want to do at some point. That's a very short list as well, but there are a few that are like, oh well, you could argue that they have like a teacher mentee kind of relationship as far as usually like, again, swordplay or something. But I wanted to put that in another video totally because that's more of like a guard relationship, which I also really like. So yeah, I only have a few. Let's get into it. The first and really the holy grail for me of this trope is the Dragon and Agnieszka from Rebrooded by Naomi Novik. So this is a very, very slow burn. Arguably like not enemies to lovers, but like he is like very befuddled and like grumpy about her, and they are 2 different magic users. She has this like nature magic that is very chaotic all over the place. He is a wizard that has like a very structured magic system, and he's trying to teach her magic at one point, and he is just so like flustered by her, and but also like then enamored with her, and there's like a whole thing. It's so good, and she definitely like doesn't stand for any of his grumpy curmudgeon-y bullshit, and I feel like the power dynamic there is very equal, even though with another character with a different personality it might be a little but she's so like stop it whenever he's a brat that it's actually really good, and it's just but the romance is like 5% of this book, so don't go into it necessarily for that dynamic because I don't think it's the most major thing, but I mean it still has stuck with me years later. I think I read this in like 2015 and I still think about them like vividly, so what do I know? Then I would say a similar vibe is Morozko and Vasya from the Winter Trilogy by Catherine Arden. This again is like, he's more of like he's like an ancient winter magical being and she is this human who has a connection to magic and like the magical world of Eastern Europe. And he starts out kind of training her in magic, but like he just gives her insight into like the magical world, and then by book 3 there's like actual romance. It is again so good, also because she is this like otherworldly type character, again very similar to the first one. If it was a different kind of character and she was more like passive and submissive, it would be a little like, oh, I don't know, but this is more like, oh, she does not take any crap, and he doesn't really give it. Like he's actually much nicer even than like I would say the dragon is, but like it's so good. So he definitely enlightens her to a lot about the magical world, and then their relationship like changes as she becomes more powerful herself, which is great. Then we have a series I have not finished, but I'm hoping to like next month, so I can tell you if I'm actually right about this. It's a recommendation because it's like very obvious this is the direction it's gonna go. I just don't know how it's gonna go after this first book, which I actually plan on rereading. But that is Aliana and Kieran from the Falconer series by Elizabeth May. This is basically a, what is it, like 1800s Edinburgh, Scotland, and make it like a fae Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And the mentor love interest is a fae who's teaching her how to hunt other like bad fae, more like monstrous fae, I guess. And they definitely have a dynamic that's like, ooh, there's banter. And then by the end, it's like, ooh, you guys like each other. So I'm excited for the rest of the series because I definitely think that that's gonna be like a continued thing. I'm actually hoping to read the rest of the series, like binge it all in December, so you'll get a more clear picture. But I didn't want to leave it out because it's like one of the only ones on my shelf left that has this element in it. So I didn't want to be like, I'm not going to include you and then never be able to include it in a video like this again. That's really dramatic, but that's just how I made this decision. Then we have an oldie but a goodie, and that is Yelena and Valak from the Poison Study series from Maria V. Schneider. This is the Throne of Glass before it was Throne of Glass. If you have not read this series, this came out before Throne of Glass. If you have not read this, there are so many similarities between it and Throne of Glass. This is like the blueprint. But Valak, it's been like, man, so many years, like over 7 years since I've read this. But Valak, I think he's either like a captain of the guard or something. Yelena becomes the poisoner, which is like someone who tests the food for the king, I think. I think it's a king. Again, it's been so long since I read this. And they end up like kind of teaming up. He's almost like supervising her for a while and then sort of like training her and stuff, and then there's tension. And I think there's a little bit of an age gap in here that might be like but it is what, like early 2000s YA, I feel like, so I kind of like excuse it a bit. And I definitely think she's older. It's YA, but like I want to say that he's maybe in his like 20, I don't actually remember. Don't come for me if this is like real, like a bad age gap, but I don't believe that it is. Anyway, they are, like I said, like the blueprint for this kind of dynamic, especially in YA. Yeah. Then we have a couple that are like a little bit more of a stretch. I haven't read the final book in the series yet, although it is out, but Riel and the Villain, which I don't want to name necessarily because of spoilers or whatever, from the Imperium Trilogy by Claire the Grand. This is very interesting because Riel is one of the main characters in this series. The series takes place in 2 timelines in the same universe, like 1,000 years apart. And so there's 2 main characters that you do follow, and Riel is one of them. And she ends up starting to have this dynamic with the Villain, which is like a really good villain, like love interest tension thing that I've talked about before with Claire Legrand's books. But he definitely ends up being like a mentor figure for her as far as like training her in her magic a bit, and they have this like mind connection and stuff, and it's very dark and twisty, but I still feel like it falls in this same category, which is why I wanted to include it. And lastly, again a stretch, but like right there on the border, we have Meher and Amun from Empire of Sand by Tasha Suri. These two are again like another like enemies to lovers kind of dynamic, but basically she gets taken by the people that are also enslaving him, basically, and they're from the same heritage, same background, and he has to teach her how to do the magic, which they do through this like ritual dance. So he's a mentor for that. Like oh my god, the tension and the angst and like the slow burn of this whole thing, like it's still, oof, it is so good. And yeah, the way that they like form trust through this teaching of this dance, so good. So that is it for my favorite mentors to lovers characters. Comment down below and let me know some of yours. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see all of you guys soon. Bye.